Driving on delivery platforms, peak pay, bonuses, and incentives can obviously be a great way to earn more income. But what happens if your marketplace really doesn't have that? Well, in this video, I'm giving you 5 tips to maximize your income without peak pay. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, peak pay is really a DoorDash specific term that just refers to per delivery bonuses. It's found in the promo tab of your Dasher app, and it'll just tell you, hey, if you drive during these certain days and times, you'll get an extra whatever it is, $2, $3 per delivery. Most marketplaces at least have some peak pay during busy times. That's typically your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but of course, today we're going to talk about all those other times without peak pay. So the first thing that you have to come to terms with is you need to be realistic. Honestly, there is nothing that I can say here. There's no magic button in the app that's going to magically earn you 25 plus an hour on no peak pay. So if you don't want to be realistic, this video is not for you. Are you still here? So as long as you can be realistic with your non-bonus earnings, then this video is for you. So let's get into the tips of exactly how to do that. So the main things that you need to focus on are the actual things that you can control. Because obviously you can't control when these apps offer bonuses, how big they're going to be, how long they're going to last. But one thing that you at least have some control over are tips. So think to yourself, when do we leave a tip? It's kind of when we're wowed with service, right? Well, if we look at some actual research, it shows that it's much more psychological. I want to go over this 2013 Cornell study that gives some recommendations of how to increase tips. Now, the study was done based on a restaurant setting with a server and a customer, but I think there's some good parallels because we're both in the service industry. So here are the tips from the study, and I'll leave this linked down below in the description if you want to check it out. Now, not all of these relate, I feel like, to our niche here, but I want to highlight a few. For instance, the second recommendation here, introduce yourself by name. I think this is a big win, especially if you're in the rideshare space. And this relates to number 8, call your customer by name. So let's say you're driving for Uber and Lyft especially. Firstly, you introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Mike. Nice to meet you. And then you can say, maybe number 7, repeat the customer's order. Now, for this niche, maybe you can just repeat their destination. So if we combine tip 2 with tip 7 and 8, it would be something like, hi, my name is Mike. Nice to meet you, Dan. Just to confirm, I have us going to ABC Theater. And I have to say, the times where my Uber and Lyft driver did call me by my name and or they did introduce themselves by name, I did feel better on that ride. So following some of these best practices, Dr. Michael Lin, the researcher of this study, found that tips on average increased by 10 to 30%. Number 6, here's another good one, especially if you're in the rideshare space, entertain your customers. Now this one, I don't think you need to bring out all the bells and whistles. I would say this just refers to quality conversation and storytelling. So speaking of things that don't relate to our niche, number 5, touch your customer. Yeah, I don't recommend that for what we're doing. Let's see here, number 11, smile. Again, it comes down to customer service, especially something for the delivery space. Let's turn our attention back to that. The Uber Eats, the DoorDash, and the Postmates. You're only interacting with these customers if it's not a contactless delivery for a very short amount of time. So service is key in those few seconds. So I'm a big advocate of number 11, smile, obviously have good service. And look at number 12. Again, referring to the restaurant space, this says write thank you on the check. So a parallel to what we're doing, again, you can maybe go back to number 8, calling the customer by name, and relating this back to number 12, simply saying thank you. So again, combining, let's say, number 11 with number 8, you can say, hi, Dan, I have your delivery for you. And then at the end, just simply thank them for the order and wish them a good day. Number 14 is actually an interesting one. Give customers candy. Again, please don't do that if you're a delivery driver just randomly. But in the rideshare space, that's been a practice for Uber and Lyft drivers really since the advent of the industry. This is really interesting because in this study, it referred to servers who, would typically, sometimes they bring candy, but they'd bring the candy with the receipt. They would leave and come back with more candy, kind of like a surprise, even though this was a strategy. And they would say, you know what? You guys were so cool. You guys were so fun today. I actually brought you some more candy. And this research showed that the servers that did that added kind of that bonus candy, got even more tips. So if we can relate that back to the delivery space, think about those little surprise candy things that you can do in the delivery. What I mean by that is it's kind of like the delivery notes. If you see something in there in the notes that you can go above and beyond, it's kind of like that surprise candy. Think of this as something like they wanted you to grab extra hot sauce, all the taco bars and whatnot that we have here in San Diego. If you grab just a bunch of all different kinds, you can say, hey, I really didn't know which one you prefer, so I just grabbed you a bunch of all of them. Number two, when it comes to earnings, the other side of net revenue is reducing expenses. So I'm a big advocate of researching hotspots, even hotspots that aren't marked in the app, let's say. And you're simply going to reduce your expenses, aka your miles. Instead of driving around all over the place, just kind of waiting for an order, you park and you wait. And still, one of the main thesis points of driving on these apps, that's the dollars to mile ratio. It's making educated decisions. I've seen good orders, actually one just recently, where it is an over $10 payout. But the dollars to mile ratio didn't really make sense. If you're unfamiliar, that's just a term that I use, the dollars that you're being paid for the miles driven. Nextly, especially in this current economy, that's driving on different apps. That's another big thing that I mentioned here on the channel if you haven't done so already. If you've been thinking about it and you just haven't signed up for the DoorDash, the Postmates, the Grubhub, the Uber Eats, ideally, I feel like you should sign up for all of those. Then you can compare, of course, base pay. You can compare promos to, what's the goal of this? To maximize your pay. And nextly, something that I've been thinking more of, especially as there really are more and more drivers in today's economy, and that's looking at apps that pay more of a flat rate per hour. But not only that, but apps where you can set your own rate per hour. Because I've mentioned Amazon Flex before. That's one of these apps that pays you a flat rate. It's going to be flat $18 per hour. That's before incentives. But think about other apps that let you set your rate, like the on-demand walking service from Rover or TaskRabbit, both of which let you set your own rate. And that's just two examples. So if you don't want the maybe volatility of these apps that it's based on the algorithm, supply and demand, you never really know what you're going to make until you get that request, well, consider apps where you can set your own rate. So if you are going to drive on these apps with no bonuses, with no incentives, well, number one, I want you to be realistic and really understand you can only make so much without these bonuses. But following some of the best practices here, if you are going to drive, my goal for you is to be in that top 15% of driver earners. So if you got value in this video, can you leave a like? And also I recommend checking the Amazon storefront link down below in the description. If you're driving in any niche in this gig economy, that's going to make sure you have the best accessories. Make sure to click or tap the screen right now for my most recent video, as well as a video recommended for you, and I'll see you in the next one.